combing my beard. Jordan told me I needed more shape in my beard this morning, so I was going with the frizz look, but actually probably should have put a bit more effort into shaping it.
I probably should have given you a bit more warning as well, rather than telling you as soon as it turned 8:45.
Indeed. Anyway, good morning all and welcome to Walking Digital Corridors, where we believe in a better future for sales and we aim to bring relevant topics to you so that you can have a better future in sales. This morning's discussion, I think, is a really interesting one. What we try and do is we try and kind of plan maybe 3 or 4 topics in advance each week. So we've always thinking about what's the next thing we're going to talk about. And we do kind of chop and change a little bit. But last week, after the podcast, we thought we'd do a bit of planning. We don't normally do that much planning, by the way, but we thought we'd do a bit of planning. And I was chatting to the boys about directional questioning and what is it? And it struck me that, you know, I'm no expert, but I feel like I do it. I've had some training years ago, and I feel like in my mind, I know what directional questioning means to me and how I tend to use it in order to achieve specific goals in conversations with prospects. But before I share my view and my definition, if you like, on directional questioning, I would like to hear from the audience. What's your definition of directional questioning? What are some examples you've got that you can share with us about how you've used it effectively? And I guess, yeah, with that, Jensen, let's let's start with you, because I think it's fair to say you're the most junior on the call, or what I mean is you have less experience, less sales experience. So this term directional questioning was alien to you when you first heard it, right?
Yeah, hit the nail right on the head. I knew what it was, but I didn't actually know the kind of detail of it and the different types of directional questioning, and actually the advantage of using that directional questioning to essentially get you to the end goal that you need to. But yeah, I mean, having that conversation last week, learning that actually it's a technique used to help guide that kind of prospect through a specific journey. And actually kind of using those directional questioning it can also kind of feel like you're selling without selling, because you're actually leaning on that kind of empathy, trying to find out different kind of hurdles or different information to actually help you guide that conversation. So for me, it was really interesting last week to kind of learn from you guys the different types, and also after doing a little bit of research, and then actually now starting to plan, how can I implement these questions into future conversations? And then what I'm planning to do then is actually kind of report back to both of you and say, look, I've tried this here. Maybe it worked. Maybe it went horribly wrong and actually didn't work. What kind of guidance can you then give me, right?
Yeah, the only way you're going to get good at something like this is by practicing.
Yeah.
By kind of, falling over, grazing your knee, and then dusting yourself off again. But yeah, I had a realization moment last week that, we're talking about topics on this podcast that many people in sales think about on a daily basis and sometimes worry about. But I get the opportunity to do it with my sons and hopefully help you guys on your path as you realize that there are these new terms, there's these new techniques. And actually, the deeper you kind of look at them, you can then start to decide whether or not you make them part of your daily activities, your sales approach. And it was just interesting when we were planning your questioning, the questioning that you do today in your role today, and you've got 3 years BDR experience, just moving into an all-round kind of sales role, and your questioning technique. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's very closed question.
Yeah,
you want to take the recipient down a specific path to qualify them in or out, and then you're done. As opposed to directional questioning, where you can almost take them on a journey of discovery themselves.
Yeah. Exactly that, and it's going through some of the examples and having the conversation with both of you kind of last week and throughout the week, kind of actually opened my eyes a bit to think, actually, I could make this more enjoyable for myself, but also my prospect, and add extra value, which is also going to help myself and them at the same time. So something that will be very beneficial, and I'm excited to actually kind of form a little strategy, come up with a couple of different examples, and then use them. And also here's some lovely examples from both of you today, hopefully.
Yeah. And with that, let's move to Jordan. Because Jordan, I think, we've talked, about your experience at Vidyard last year, and how Vidyard came up with an addition to their value proposition, let's say, that was relatively complex and new for Vidyard, new for their customers. And I think you deployed this technique quite effectively and were recognized for it. Morning, Jude. Don't worry, we're going to have you on this podcast soon. We'll get all of the Abbott boys on here.
Indeed. We're looking forward to that day. So it was an interesting one. Directional questioning is something that we've spoken about in the past, and something that I'd never had any specific training on. But following conversations that we've had, sort of looking back, reflecting on some of those people that I've found inspirational, some of those mentors, teachers even, they've all used the mechanism because it's such an effective vehicle to move the conversation and progress the conversation and have a huge impact, right? And almost empower the person on the other end to realize that impact rather than you just feeding it to them.
Yeah.
So never really, I guess, consciously tried to put it into place, but maybe had it become part of my approach. And I think when I first joined Vidyard, one of the things I struggled with, because I'd moved from a role that was a bit more fluid, working at Superhero, where I'd manage more of the cycle, to a role where I was an SDR and my job was to qualify.
And qualify. Bang, bang,
yeah,
bang.
And it was difficult for me because the way that I wanted to manage those calls was to go on a journey and really to have more of a discovery call.
Yeah. You felt restricted in the role. Is that what you were saying?
I did, yeah. I did. And I understand that, if a business is structured with BDR, SDR function, AEs, etc., you don't necessarily want the BDRs or SDRs to be asking questions that the AEs then going to ask, right? So I kind of get that you may have to put those walls into place to an extent, but
that's a problem today, right?
I know. It really is. But I think that's one for another 15 minutes, because we could go on. We could really go in. But yeah, to your point, there was a point where I thought, okay, no, I need to be holding these calls as more of a discovery. The reason being, Vidyard brought to market their first solution that wasn't completely reliant on video or wasn't completely focused on video, and that being rooms. So it was definitely a new muscle for the organization. And one of the things that I sort of set as a goal was to just, okay, what are the problems that this solves? I don't want to just jump there. I want to help the client realize that there might be a need. I don't want to go on that call and go, hey, have you checked out our new solution? Because that, for me, I switch off instantly. So I want to have a conversation, lead it to the pain that we solve for. And then in an ideal world, the prospect go, oh, I didn't realize that's something that Vidyard did. Do you help to overcome those challenges? And at that point, I've then been invited in to speak about that. And yeah, as a result, I was leading the leaderboard in terms of the amount of conversations and opportunities generated for this new product, and got a little shout out from the CEO on our town hall, which was lovely. You know,
So it
always
worked.
nice to have the ego stroked.
Of course.
But yeah, I as I see it, directional questioning when used correctly is such a powerful vehicle for taking the prospect on that journey.
Yeah, really great comment there from Charlie Platt. Thank you, Charlie. The way I see it, good directional questioning is subtle, exploratory, and focuses on uncovering the client's needs. It guides the client to self-realize the value of the product without feeling pressured. Bad directional questioning, on the other hand, it's leading, presumptive, and manipulative. It disregards the client's actual needs and perspectives, focusing more on making a quick sale. I think what I would say there, if you don't mind me saying this, Jensen.
Go ahead.
Right there, we have Jensen and Jordan.
Yeah.
From my experience, were you thinking the same thing?
That's as I was reading that. That's why I was before you actually said about Charlie's comment. I was going to say actually that's a pretty good example of where I would say I have been. I mean, I'm trying to make the transition to actually kind of educate myself more to realize actually I need to adjust my approach in a certain way to make it better for them. But perfect example of actually kind of that bad directional questioning that I was using. Then actually, if I look back at it, I do think, oh, maybe it was presumptive and a little bit kind of manipulative, and just to get that, or to not get the sale, but just to make that qualification right. And I think it's also taking that step back, putting your foot off the gas a little bit, of actually saying, no, you're going to go down this hole. And actually, like Jordan said as well, was finding out the needs. And like Charlie said, finding out the needs.
Can I just say though, Jensen?
Yeah.
What you do is brilliant, and you're clearly successful. So don't try and change completely what you do. You hit the nail on the head. Find that balance to make that transition, so you don't lose what works and what you're currently being recognized for within the business.
Oh no, yeah, of course. And I think it could be just such a subtle change to the questioning, right? I'm not saying, oh yeah, my questions are very leading, it's right straight to the point, because that's not me and that's not how I kind of portray myself, right? But I think it's just adjusting your skill set slightly to actually help you and guide you to become better at your job, right? That's essentially what I want, and I look at it as kind of my armor set in a kind of way, and I want to actually kind of make myself or grow my knowledge in a way that actually I'm going to be able to help educate them, nurture them, and do it in a way that
grow your knowledge so that you can feel confident asking those directional questions, knowing that wherever you're taking the conversation, your knowledge can help bring it back.
Yeah, exactly. And I think kind of doing that more and more, and knowing the different types of directional questioning, that's when, going back to the kind of I forget it, the incompetent competent scenario, right? I keep forgetting that. I need to kind of ingrain it again. But
unconsciously incompetent to becoming unconsciously competent.
Exactly that, right? And it's just that practicing that will get me to that unconsciously competent, and then actually you find you're able to take that conversation down any direction.
Now,
it's a really good point.
Sorry, George.
I was just going to say it's a really good point, and there is a great graph that was shared by I forget the chap's name, Ryan Patton, that we spoke about briefly. Perhaps it might be worthwhile us chucking the link to that graph in the chat if possible, just for people to look at those different directions that you can take the conversation.
Strategic, tactical, towards the pain, towards the gain. You really are taking your recipient on a roller coaster ride of emotions in some cases, and that's kind of what needs to be done to help them discover, but also help you qualify as a salesperson.
Yeah, it's a really good point. When you first shared it, I was thinking, it's quite interesting. I was almost drawing a little graph of that ideal journey, right? Because you want to focus on the pain and you want to tie that pain to a strategic objective, right? And then you will have to dip down into the tactical to show how it's actually possible. And then you're mapping the path to value towards that gain, towards that top right. But then I was thinking, really, it's you can't map a single
No.
route because it's so non-linear, and that's why it's so great, because the way that buyers buy is non-linear. You're going to have conversations with people over here that may have to focus on a certain area of that grid. You're going to have conversations with other members of that decision-making unit where the conversation might be more focused in that top right axis of the graph. And I think directional questioning and having the confidence and understanding that it's going to be an iterative process gives that flexibility to provide that really great experience for the buyer, where they feel like you're really listening and understanding the challenges that they're facing.
Yeah, there's another topic there, listening skills for us,
Yeah.
perhaps another time. I know we're slightly over, but I do want to carry on because the topic is such a good one. And I do encourage the audience to come up with any other questions or thoughts that you might have. But I wanted to share an experience that you and I had, Jordan. You'd been made redundant from Vidyard. It was a big shock. You picked yourself up, dusted yourself off, got yourself into, I don't know, half a dozen or more interview situations within the space of a week or two. And you were preparing for the interview with the Institute of Sales Professionals, where you now work. And you were asked to prepare an exercise or prepare, was it a questioning technique, or what was it specifically you were asked to
Yeah,
prepare?
so it was sort of like a role play without being a role play. So, it wasn't as if the hiring managers, Tom and Patrick, were gonna be, oh, we're Mr. Prospect now.
Yeah,
But it was sort of a simulation of what a conversation might look like and how I'd
yeah.
manage that conversation.
So we practiced your role play together. We rehearsed it, and I have to say, you were using directional questioning with me in the role play, and I wasn't even buying or expecting to buy, but through the questioning you were asking me, you were uncovering thoughts and ideas in my mind about Vidyard's digital rooms, and I'm thinking to myself, I need this. I need this. I had absolutely no idea that I needed it, but through the questioning you asked me, and you weren't selling to me, sorry, speech marks, quote unquote, for those listening to the audio later, you weren't selling to me. You were just asking me questions. And I left that conversation thinking, I need to buy this today because it's going to help me in my business. Just imagine the number of salespeople out there that are so focused on finding people that are in market to buy now, they're missing out on 95% of their territory that could be in market if all they did was have a conversation with them.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. Um, I think again, that we're opening up another can of worms, right? But
Well, I wouldn't call it a can of worms, but an interesting topic to
yeah,
discuss in more detail.
yeah, I think obviously particularly in the situation we find ourselves in at the minute, where there's heightened pressure on salespeople to find those that are ready to buy now.
Yeah.
It makes it difficult. The environment that is being set, the culture that's being set, top down. I find that some days I really struggle with directional questioning if I'm not in the right mindset, and some calls it can be a real struggle. But if you've got that consistent pressure from the top down, doesn't breed an environment that's conducive to having those conversations and being able to have those conversations. Additionally, you know, if I found it a lot easier to manage calls in that way, or take prospects on that journey when there was a suite of tools that Vidyard offered, because I had the flexibility to, okay, if this is the key focus, I can take the conversation in this direction, or based on those responses. You've got that flexibility to go on that sort of Christmas tree journey. You know, you could take a route down here, almost like a pinball machine. You've got the ability to do that. Whereas if, you know, there's a very specific solve or solution that you're offering, it can be more difficult. It's not impossible by any means.
100%. And I think you're touching on a really important point there, that and even if you're a tech company, even if it is a software you're selling, more complex if you have a range of services, but it's highlighting the importance of businesses actually taking control of defining what their value proposition is. And I don't mean a few words about, you know, what it is and why buy, why change and all that good stuff. I mean, get into the minutiae detail of quantifying the differentiated commercial value that your solution delivers and the problem it solves, and teaching your salespeople how to actually take their recipient, their buyers, on that journey to understand that, and create that path to value. Because I think without that, it becomes impossible to do directional questioning effectively, because you never really know where you're trying to take the conversation.
No, exactly. And I think the skiing analogy is really, really pertinent here. You know, as you get better at skiing, you're then able to go off piste. You can go wherever you'd like down that mountain, and you'd have the confidence to be able to get back to a certain point.
Love that.
Right. And that's exactly what it is for salespeople. Without that knowledge, without that understanding, without that real belief that's come from the knowledge and the understanding and the confidence, it's an uphill battle.
Yeah. I'm conscious of time. We've gone well over, but I think it was a worthwhile conversation. Thank you, Jensen. Thank you, Jordan, for your insight, both of you. Until next time on Walking Digital Corridors, enjoy the rest of your week, folks.
Have a great week.